Hello friends, I'm Nukebrush, and today we are going to make Imperial infantry walker the can under Ork management.
Time to go nuclear.
The models came to me already printed. And again, there are sentinels on this channel. Yeah, that's true, but this time under the control of Sinus. In this case it will be space orcs. And if they are orcs, then it will be brutal, bright and fun. I decided not to add external elements to our models, which means we are limited to go on with the parts we have. One vehicle will have maximum shooting capability. You know, orcs always need more deca. And the other sentinel is maximally configured for close combat. I will paint the first model in a brutal red color, and the second one in a cunning green camouflage. No, there will be no purple sneaky color today, sorry. So two models of Imperial Sentinels will have a non-standard configuration, non-standard colors, but do have recognizable orc style decals. These models are not difficult to assemble and are actually no different from the Imperial Sentinels that I made in the last video. Sentinels are primed using Nitro Primer Mystery Surfacer 1000, as this is one of the best options for identifying all sorts of defects, printing errors and pits that need to be eliminated before applying the main colors. All defects must be repaired with putty and sanded. This is not difficult since this time there were very few such defects. When everything is ready with a primer, we can prepare the models for applying the main colors and camouflage and apply basic shadows and highlights. The base for the shadows will be brown primer paint, one-shot primer brown oxide, which I apply only to the lower parts of the models. Highlights are easy to do with white paint, which should be applied to the upper parts of the sentinels, turrets and other removable elements. The primer, base shadows and highlights are ready, we can start applying the main colors and camouflage. The first sentinel is a shooting one, red in color. Before painting, I apply two masking tapes along the center of the hull and turret. This way our model will get two bright white stripes that contrast well with the main color. To get a nice bright red in the end, I apply orange paint first. It will provide reliable bases between the top and the bottom layers of paint and will also combine the shadows and illuminated areas on the model. On the top of the orange color, I apply rich red blood red paint. I apply it thinly in one layer, in a way so not to completely cover previous highlights and shadows. So, sentinel number 2, close combat, green, swampy, sneaky, cunning. I paint the entire body and removable parts green, using native green paint. It gives a dull green color, which is exactly what we need for our camo. This sentinel will have pixel camouflage, so as usual I first print out the required design on a printer, select the appropriate size and then cut out the necessary stencils. For those who have not yet seen how I do this, see the link at the top of the page. After the stencil application I cover the model with native brown paint. This is an interesting brown color, also dull, not attracting attention, just what we need. New stencil layer and new color. This time it is black and green Schwarzgrün to bring the model as close as possible to the swamp camouflage style. So far paint schemes going well, aren't they? Next step, I pick up a brush and highlight the details of the jointing and decorative elements. This is an easy job that only requires a little patience and some accuracy. For the red sentinel, pink color or a mixture of red and white paint works well. The sentinel with green camo has at least 2 separate colors, so I also need 2 different paints for highlighting. I highlight the green color using a light green tone of olive green paint, and the brown camo was done using clay brown color. While the main colors are drying, we work with the metal parts, elements of the running gear, pneumatics and of course weapons. I use polished metal paint, which give a pure shine metallic color to the painted elements, which we are going to dull a bit with aging and weathering products. There is not much work and we can move on to the next, more interesting stage. The decals on these sentinels will not be imperial, but orkish, and there will be a lot of them. Models are coated with glossy varnish for better adherence of the decals to the surface. And for better transfer of decals, as always, I use model chemistry. First I apply Mark Setter Neo to install the decals, and then Mark Softer Neo for better welding. Of course the shooting sentinel will be marked with deca and more deca symbols. And on the melee sentinel there are glyphs of close combat. It is more work than usual, but it's fun and interesting to choose places where I can still place orkish signs and symbols. For example, make imitation eyes on the turret or place a threatening skull on the painted over windows of the combat cockpit. As on the Imperial Sentinels, I pre-age the exhaust pipes. This is not labor-intensive work at all, but on the contrary, an interesting process to observe how the exhaust pipe on a model naturally or unnaturally becomes dirty and rusty. All you need is a sponge, a brush and several different paints that imitate rust, carbon deposits, metal burning, exhaust soot and other pleasant things. The process on both models is approximately the same. At first a little grey, then black and then rust on top. The final touches in the form of pigments, soot and other streaks will be applied at the weathering stage. Let's start applying washes. I use enamel ones, but even if I use acrylic washes, the model still needs to be protected with varnish. For both sentinels I took the black wash model chemistry, which is universal and is perfect for red and green paint schemes. Using a brush we emphasize the elements of the body and removable parts, creating volume and shadow on the model. Enamel washes are highly fluid and dry for a relatively long time, so correcting mistakes or removing excess wash is quite easy. If the wash dries out, then you can correct the result using a brush dipped in thinner. Just don't use too much force so as not to remove the wash along the varnish and paint. Once the wash has dried, the models can be varnished again to protect our work. At the first stage of aging of the model, as always, I paint chips. But in this video we will do them differently. For the red sentinel everything will be as usual, first light paint, then dark. Using a sponge, apply pink paint or a mixture of red and white to the most worn areas, corners, elements of running mechanisms, hatches and doors, etc. Then, using a brush, we try to give the chaotically applied chipped spots a more complete look by painting scratches and uniting chips. On top of the light chips, where only the top layer of paint is damaged, we apply dark rust color, which means that the damage here is deeper and goes to the metal. As you can see, everything is simple and usual, as always. But on the second sentinel, I will paint the chips differently. First, use a sponge and brush to apply dark rust to the most damaged areas. When we are happy with the result, we can take light green paint and start highlighting our chips. We do not apply light paint over the rust, but only emphasize the chips, creating the illusion of volume. The main thing in applying any chips is not to overdo it and stop in time to define the silhouette of the model and not to overload its appearance. As you can see, different approaches led to slightly different results, but the appearance of the Sentinels only benefits from this. By the way, write in comments which approach you prefer more. Almost the finish line, rust, fuel, dirt. As usual, using a brush we apply a small amount of model chemicals to the required places, and if we need to correct our work, we use a brush with a thinner. It is important to remember that if the model is covered with a layer of varnish, then the model chemistry and thinner will not affect your previous work. For the Ork Sentinels, I will also be using simulated terrain bases, so some appropriate dust and dirt should be applied to the running parts and model hull. We create the weathered and worn look on the bottom of our models using various dry and liquid pigments. Which ones exactly depends on the type of landscape, so let's start making our bases. The base for the red sentinel, since it is so brutally red and fast, will imitate an asphalt road. I glue a piece of cork sheet onto the base, onto which I apply the asphalt ground texture with a spatula. To level the surface, I dip the spatula in water. Using a brush with same paste, I pass along all sides of the cork. The side end of the asphalt road will be broken, so in this area we apply some airy dry ground texture paste mixed with artificial resin stones and cork. When the asphalt texture has dried, road markings can be applied. I cover the required area with masking tape and paint a recognizable boundary line with yellow paint. Now we will create worn and weathered look on our asphalt surface. Using pigments, washes and other modeling chemicals, we create the effect of dust and dirt on the road and surrounding land. I used various dry and liquid pigments as well as thinner to give our base a natural asphalt road look. Our melee sentinel also needs a base. And it will be swampy, damp soil with a variety of vegetation from fine moss to small turfs of grass. First we create an uneven surface using a regular napkin soaked in acrylic glue and glued to the base. Over it we apply the dark mud ground texture paste, which perfectly imitates wet earth. While the texture has not yet dried, we can mark the placement of our sentinel for its better fit later. Now we will make small puddles in our wetland. Using a brush, we apply the puddles texture into the recesses on our base. If our puddles lack some richness, we can mix various swamp and muddy paints with our texture, and the result is a pleasant swampy ground with clearly visible liquid mud. It's time to plant vegetation in our swamp. I apply acrylic glue to the protruding parts of the base, and then sprinkle it with a mix of micro-leaves. When our leaves is fixed to the surface, we can place larger plants. I use artificial turfs from various manufacturers, which I glue with acrylic glue or superglue. Then we can glue our sentinel onto a base and cover a chassis with same texture pastes, vegetation and splashes from swamp puddles. Done! Our brutal but cunning, also cunning but brutal sentinels are ready to serve. Or excuse me, ready to WAH! If you liked the video and want to see more models like this, feel free to comment, like and share it, and also subscribe to the channel. Good luck with your models and see you soon!